So first off, you're going to hear a lot in shelters about fear, anxiety, and stress. It is shortly known as FAST. That's kind of just the acronym for it. And the first thing that everyone should remember that animals communicate physically. We humans rely on verbal communication, so we are actually very poor at seeing vocal cues. How many of you have ever heard someone be like, I was petting this dog and it just bit me out of nowhere? Yeah, I see a few nodding heads. Well, actually that dog was warning you. You may not have seen the cue, but it was there. They are always communicating with their bodies, with their eyes, everything. One thing to also realize is both cats and dogs have a rudimentary system. Even when they're extremely excited, all the way down to distressed, they are still emitting cortisol. Who knows what cortisol is? It's the stress hormone. So even when they're really happy, they're still emitting that stress. They're still feeling stress. And that means that their body is going into one of the 4 ways of reacting. We all know fight and flight. How many of you have heard freeze and fawn? Who knows what fawn is? And I put a cheat up there. So fawn is appeasement. That is where an animal starts being like, in penguins, it's called pebbling. They're like, hey, if I come and snuggle you, are you still gonna stress me out? If I bring you the ball, are we good? So it's where they start doing repetitive appeasement behaviors to try and get you to stop whatever the stimulant is. So flight typically is the most common one that animals try to go into first. They will always try to avoid the situation because as far as it goes energetically, it is the least taxing to their system. So they will always try to flight first. The other 3 they will go into when that doesn't work. Shelter behavior has to be evaluated case by case. A plus B equals banana. What you do with one dog outside of this shelter in a low stress environment is not going to work with every dog here in the shelter. Sometimes we get grapes. Sometimes we get D. Yesterday I got a Z. I don't know. Everything has to be evaluated case by case. Everything is always changing. So you always have to be on your toes and expect for things to be different. Every animal is different. Every behavior is going to be different. Every situation is possibly going to have a different outcome. So judgment calls that we make based on behavior is due to repetition. Who here knows how many times you have to do a repeated behavior before it's a habit? Well, I'm talking more of repetition-wise. 3 times. After 3 times of doing a repeated behavior and getting the result that you want from it, it is now a habit. Both humans and dogs, as well as cats, they are all geared to doing what is going to cost less when it comes to energy. And energy just simply is a way that we phrase it as far as like, energy costs. How can I get the maximum value with the least amount of energy? All animals kind of instinctually do this. This is a list of common ways that dogs react when they are having stress. Now, can anyone spot what's unique about this list? It's a little either or. It's very contradictory. A great quote that I like to use from Charles Chestnut is, I contradict myself, so I contradict myself. Animal behavior is super contradictory. And again, it goes moment by moment. They will change through these so quickly. One moment you have ears back, next moment they're airplane, eye dilation. You go from a hard stare to all of a sudden I'm avoiding eye contact. And this is just a handful. There are hundreds of ways that dogs send us cues. Same thing for cats. Everything contradicts. One moment you're excessively sleeping, the next moment you're bouncing, ping-ponging off those walls like you're a Cirque du Soleil act. In shelters, we have a rating system. Now some shelters, I love this chart because it shows kind of the 3 ways that a lot of shelters phrase things. There's what I call the most simplistic way, low, moderate, high. Also correlates to stop, caution, go. And then there's the actual levels. So to break these further down, very rarely do we see an animal come into shelter that is level 0. This is an animal that is purely relaxed. They're just chilling. They're the surfer dude. It is very rare for us to have this. Most dogs, if they are well socialized, and when I say socialized, I mean that they have been taught coping mechanisms, we may get level 1. That is with avoiding some eye contact, maybe some lip licking, they're a little tense in their body posture, but they're still maybe wagging their tail. They're still kind of like willing to accept treats, investigate, play with you. Level 2, slightly higher. This is mostly where dogs or cats come in. Ears are slightly back, tails down. You start to see some pupil dilation. Now, a lot of these, when you go specific with the levels, we're counting how much a behavior repeats itself in under a minute, all right? So you're still seeing a lot of repeated behaviors possibly, but it's like once every couple minutes, maybe there's a lip lick or a paw lift or whatever that animal's tick is. At level 3, that's where you start seeing some disinterest in toys, disinterest in food. You're starting to see more of those behaviors come quicker. So they were still not quite within a minute, but we're seeing like every minute and a half, a little quirk is happening. That's him communicating, okay, I'm a little less uncomfortable. I'm a little nervous. Level 4 and 5. Level 4 and 5, get away from that animal. That animal is escalating up. With level 4, you see absolutely no interest in food or toys. You're seeing lip licking happening within under a minute. It's more than 4 multiples. So it's lip lick, lip lick. You start to see a lot of panting, maybe pacing, or if they're not that kind of dog, they may just be sitting there frozen and panting. Again, it depends on their quirks. Level 5, they are leaning forward, they are showing their teeth, they are getting ready to go for you. To say, I'm telling you all these ways that I'm not happy, we're now at red. And we're so far up in red. So this is a system a lot of shelters used, and not just shelters here in America. You hear about this system internationally. So if you have to deal with somebody in Canada, they want one of our dogs, and they're like, okay, how does this dog operate at level 5 fast? They're talking about this scale. Trigger stacking is kind of a result of what happens here in shelters. This is something that is specifically done everywhere with pets, but in shelters we see it really sort of personified. So first off, what is a trigger? What do you guys think a trigger is? So yes, specifically in general, a trigger is something that is causing that dog to have a spike in cortisol. Now again, it could be because they're excited as well as that they're under duress. With triggers, loud noises, strange dogs, men in hats. It could be anything. Again, that's what that dog has been taught is a proper coping mechanism. With the stacking triggers, what it is those triggers stacked one right after the other, the spikes after one, and then another, and another, and another. Does anyone know how long it takes for cortisol to, let's say, use humans as an example. How long does it take an adrenaline spike, a cortisol spike, to fully dissipate out of your system? 3 hours. Maximum is 3 days. That's why the 3x3 rule that we talk about in adoptions is it's 3 days to decompress, 3 weeks for an animal to learn a new routine, 3 months to fully assimilate into a new home. So we always encourage new adopters, do not try anything new for 3 days. So that being said, in our day in life, most dogs are not being given, I'm going to try to stick with dogs because I work more with them, but most animals are not being given enough time to detox those chemicals out of their system. So in this example, we have a dog. He goes on a walk every day. Great, perfect, fine. Then one day a strange dog, off leash, runs up to him. That's a major spike. A minor spike could be he has some reactivity. He sees a dog down the road. He wants to go and say hi for whatever reason. All right, well, if he's already excited from the walk, now there's a dog in his face. That's a stacking the trigger. Then he comes home. There's a stranger there with a hat on. Oof, now we're passing threshold. Anyone want to take a guess what threshold is? So threshold is typically what we, kind of a blanket term for an animal that goes from being able to have self-soothing and self-processing behaviors to all of a sudden, I'm just acting on instinct. I'm just going to go for it. I am so fed up with everything. I'm not being listened to. I need my space. They are no longer thinking with problem-solving skills. As you can see here from this level, all the way up until that stranger, this dog was still able to self-soothe. It was still able to be like, okay, I'm not happy with this situation, or I'm really happy with this situation. I'm just going to handle myself. Once it passes threshold, its system is so flooded with cortisol. That dog, he, she, it, no longer knows how to react to anything other than by going by instinct. That's where we see the most bites happen. That's where we see a lot of problematic behavior. And it's as simple as most of the stuff that we deal with when we're talking with adopters is how to avoid trigger stacking their dogs, especially when they're new to the home. So flooding is a very common term as far as those dogs have gone overboard. They've gone over threshold. They are flooded with those chemicals. The problem with threshold is once they get into that level of instinct, they have what's called a reinforcing behavior. When you have a reinforcing behavior, that they don't need anything from humans. That behavior is going to be their go-to every single time in an escalating way. That is going to get them what they want. So next time this dog, let's say he crosses threshold. He bites the stranger runs away. That sends an instinctual message to the dog, a subconscious message that if I don't like a stranger and I bite every stranger, the stranger goes away, I don't have to do anything. And that becomes a reinforced behavior, and it is really hard to reprogram a reinforced behavior. So our best bet is to try and keep these dogs from going over threshold as much as we can. Who's stressed? You're right. Everyone is stressed. Someone want to pick a picture and tell me what is the identifying factor? What's the tick that tells you that that animal is stressed? Definitely. That kitty, not happy. Anyone else? What about this cute little guy in the middle? He's appeasing. Exactly. That's why this picture is in here. He is in appeasement mode. I'm just so cute now. The thing that's dangerous about appeasement is a dog will put themselves in a situation they are so uncomfortable with that you can't tell when threshold's being crossed. So that's why you have to always be looking. All right, safe handling. When you have all these animals that have all of these big feelings that are happening inside them and you're learning to read their cues, how do you handle these animals safely? Well, the basic steps. Read the situation. Before you ever go into a kennel with an animal, take a moment, assess them, see how they are feeling. This word sounds a little like therapy, Always double check that you are seeing the cues right. If you are unsure, just come and ask them for a second opinion. No one's gonna think less of you. I would rather you guys be safe, seek out a second opinion, have a buddy, than put yourselves in a situation. Approach with caution. Even if that animal seems like they're all chill, still be aware that they can trigger at any moment. Have the appropriate tools for the job. This one is not always easy to have in shelters, but if you know you gotta go into a kennel and that dog is reactive to other dogs, push all the other dogs to the back of the kennel. Make sure there's nobody in yards. Have treats waiting wherever they are. Have treats with you. Have toys with you. Don't get yourself into a situation and be like, oh my God, I don't have this thing that I need. Be prepared. It does help you in the long run. Be calm. Animals are amplifiers if we are the guitars. They have been domesticated for a long time. They pick up on our cues because that's how we have enforced and trained them to. So whatever you're feeling, they're gonna know. They're gonna know before your coworkers know, let's say that. All right? So you have to always be able to be calm. A great way to practice is you have to practice decompartmentalizing. Whatever's going on outside of work, try not to bring it into work. These guys know, and they will react to it. They know when you're new, they know when it's someone they're not familiar with, and they can feel when you're unsure, uncertain. All right? Always be alert. It takes milliseconds for something to happen with an animal. All right? And have an exit plan. Have a way out. All right? We have walkies. We're getting some for our volunteers to have exclusively. Don't ever go into a kennel without thinking, how am I going to get the heck out of here? Now, there is also, we do social living here. That is something very different from other shelters. Other shelters, it's one kennel, one animal. We can't do that. We get too many animals. But the question comes up, how do you tell if animals are getting along? There's obvious ones. There's body posture, vocal cues. There are some dogs we have that don't make it easy to tell. In an ideal play situation, animals move between safe play, rough play, boundary setting, and negotiations. How do you tell these apart? I have 2 videos. So what would you call this rotating position here? That's actually, they're negotiating. So the dog in the middle is remaining calm and collective, but he's clearly saying, I don't want you in my face. I'm just going to circle until you go away. And that other dog's like, I kind of like circle, and let's keep going, let's keep going. So that is right there, them negotiating, like, is this really play? Getting a little too jumpy. So that push down, what was that? That was a correction. That was that dog saying, excuse me, I am done with this, you jumping on me. That was setting a boundary. More boundary setting there. Now that dog purposely rolled over. What was that? That was actually safe play. That dog was saying, okay, I've done a lot to set boundaries. Now I'm going to roll over, and we're just going to have some nice, fun, easy play. Now the black dog obviously is learning how to play. This black dog is constantly in, here we go. So that there, for the smallest amount of time, was break. In play, you should always see dogs being able to take breaks. It means that they are finally comfortable enough with the situation that they can breathe, take water. If you have 2 dogs in yard and they are just going, don't put them in kennel together. Because what's going to happen is one of them is going to snap, and then we're going to have a scrappy. There's another little break. He's still trying to negotiate play. So right there, he jumped on him. Anyone want to say what that one was? It's more boundary setting. It's more that one constantly bounces between negotiation and boundary setting. So as you notice, they are moving through these stages. The whole time this puppy's in rough play mode. He hasn't learned his manners yet, which is something we get a lot here. Now, something this video doesn't show is sometimes when older dogs have enough, they come up and they jump on you. That is them saying like, hey, yo, I'm out. Like, can we get me out of here? If you have a dog that all of a sudden breaks away from play, runs and jumps on you, it means you have to reinforce the break. This is cats. So first off, who's the one that's needing to learn manners? Is it the black cat or the orange cat? This one gives you lots of hints and cheats, so. But yes, the black cat is pushing into already boundary setting rough territory. The orange cat is the one that's invading. A little bit of a break there. So that move, what was that move? That cat was saying, okay, I think I've had enough already. I'm gonna go away and try to reset myself. And then that orange cat was like, hey, I'm coming with you. And he's like, nope, nope. Now, these guys are mostly rough playing, I will say that. You can watch more of this video, but it's mostly these two in rough play. They very rarely downgrade enough to safe play, but they both are males. So males typically stay very rough in their play, especially as cats go.
So they're still playing?
They're still playing.
Okay.
Even when they're correcting each other and negotiating with each other, they're still playing. Animals explore their world with their mouth the way humans would their hands. So everything is an exploration. Everything is kind of open communication as far as how everyone's feeling. When it escalates up past that and you see claws come out, you see the teeth, that's when they're saying, okay, I've had enough. Or they're fleeing because they're clearly like, I'm out. So.
But when it gets that far, can you stop it?
When it gets that far, yes, you have to stop it. A lot of times it's easy for most animals. They're so focused. The old saying amongst a lot of behavioralists, I know some of you have heard this for the orange cats, is that all orange cats share a brain cell. And you just gotta wait for it to come around and engage. It's obviously not true, but a lot of times just by making noise, or you yourself moving into the situation, they're gonna get distracted enough, they're gonna just split apart.
That yelling at hay and flapping usually freaks them out enough.
Yeah, I'm sure some of you have heard me backing dogs being loud, and that's just to break up some rough play. Never be afraid to use your voice. Stress reduction and safety. Cats feel less stress when they either can hide or get elevated. Now, this is a controversial thing in shelters. A lot of people higher up in shelters don't like it when cats can hide. Well, how do they get adopted if they can't hide? Well, how are they going to get adopted if they're being forced on display 24/7 to perform like a little monkey? Like, there's no stress reduction there. So then they don't show well. So always try to provide a cat a place to hide or get up somewhere. Some of our cages are not conducive for white boxes to go in, so having them up on those tiers really helps de-escalate them as well. If they feel like they can get above you, they feel secure because you can't technically get them. So always try to provide one of those two things. Also, a natural self-soothing is if cats can lick, scratch, or chew. This is why enrichment is so important for these guys. If they can do those three things, they can actually start to regulate that cortisol level on their own. It gets them further and further away from threshold. That being said, A lot of our stuff here, a lot of our toys and stuff is a one-time use only because disease. So a lot of our kittens, they'll only get something, they'll get a cute little stuffed animal to hang out with, and then we have to throw that away. It's just a way to keep them safe. But we are constantly, me and others are always looking for new ways of trying to enrich our cats that get them into one of these self-soothing behaviors. They need to have something that retains their scent. Again, the toys, they work really well. A washcloth, something that retains their scent. Cats will typically have a territory. Anyone know about the territory size of a domestic cat, let's say, out in the wild? 5 miles. A stray cat will have a territory that's about 5 miles in length. So that's why when people have their cats go missing, we tell them to search a 5-mile grid. So something that ties a territory to them is very comforting for a cat. Something that they can retain that sense of smell. Now, obviously, some of our cats like to get their stuff all gross and we have to replace it. That's fine. We'll just go ahead and replace it. But anytime that we can, there is also a pheromone that we have here, Feel Away. Who's heard of that? Some of you? It is expensive, and honestly, in shelters, it doesn't work that great. And part of that is because the shelter ventilation system. Unless you can contain that scent somewhere, to kind of further break down what it is it's similar to the pheromone that a mother cat in nursing emits to calm her kittens down. Somehow they managed to put that in a little bottle. Diffusers just don't work because it waters down way too quickly and does very little impact. So when we do use it, we only use it for the really stressed out cats, again, because it is super expensive. And we make sure that it can be confined in like a box or underneath a tower or something that is right up with that cat. So this way we're not wasting that product. Enrichment. Once cleaning's done, have at the enrichment, guys. Every animal needs at least 5 to 15 minutes of enrichment daily. One of my favorite things to do is take a handful of treats, throw it over the top of the kennels, and have scavenger hunt. Whoever finds the treats gets them. Anything is better than nothing for these guys. And if you have to handle them, a high-stress animal, we have nets, we have bite gloves. Scruffing from the back of the neck is, while becoming more and more of a controversial way of handling animals, it does work. It does work to keep you safe. There's also just throwing a towel and burritoing up that cat as much as you can. It's kind of my favorite. Dog stress. So similar to cats, chewing and licking reduce stress, but smelling does too. Sometimes you'll see me put boxes in kennels, and they have lavender, nutmeg, all sorts of fun scents for the dogs. Some dogs like it, some dogs don't. But nose play is becoming more and more of a thing amongst shelters to try and get these dogs smelling things. People who take their dogs on walk consistently get so focused on the actual walk, it's actually supposed to be mentally stimulating for the dog. You have to mentally stimulate a dog every day for 45 minutes. Smelling is a great way to get that. Plus, then you don't have to walk as far. 2 hands on the leash is optimal, especially when you're dealing with one of these big guys. All right, try to have 2 hands on the leash. I'm a big stickler for this. I started out training horses, so I'm a big stickler for like nothing wrapped around you. However, 3 out of my 4 mentors, they're instantly like, 1 hand, have that leash wrapped around. That's a difference of opinion. But when it comes to our bigger polar dogs, I will really insist for safety reasons, please don't wrap it around, just have 2 hands on it. Be aware who else is in the area. If you're opening kennel doors, be aware if anyone else is. And that's just because when dogs get out, they like to run. And they'll run towards friends. They'll run towards the closest yard. Most of the time, they're going to come right back to you. But I like to say it's bowling alley rules. If somebody is in the same bank as you and you're both trying to open up kennels, just one of you call it out and be like, yeah, I'll go first. This is just in case both dogs get out. We don't want a conflict in the middle of the hallway. Know your codes. We don't really have cat codes. It's just, most of the time the cats are easily confinable. With dogs, we have 3 important codes. We have Scooby, which is a loose dog, Scrappy, dog fight, and Skippy. With any of these codes, you come over the walkie, you be calm. You tell us what the situation is, which code it is, where you are located, and if possible, and as long as you're not panicked, what dog it is. Because if we have a dog that has a problem with men, we don't want men running towards that animal in a high-stress situation. We learned the other day, we have very good response here. You call that, all of vet staff's coming, all of ACT's coming, all of admin's coming. We're running at you as quick as we can to help with the situation in any of those. Once this situation is handled, you have to get on the walkie and call cancel. Otherwise, people are still coming. All right. Dogs are sensitive to our feelings. We have to practice de-escalating our own emotions. If you are a high-intensity person, just practice being calm. Because, again, they do pick up on that super easy, and they start mimicking those behaviors. Also, location bios, memos, those need to be done. This is more for the ACT people. Need to be done as often and as consistently as possible. This is just because we have a number of people. We have volunteers, we have admin, we have our social media department that goes and handles these animals. And if we're not keeping our notes consistent, they could be walking into a situation that could compromise. So the more notes that we can put on these animals' behavior, the safer we can keep everyone. So overall, the role of shelter staff and volunteers. First things first, this is a very important point to me. The public and a lot of people believe that our role in shelter is to fix every single behavior. We don't teach basics, we teach coping. We are not here to fix aggression, reactivity, resource guarding. Most of that you can't do in high situations. That takes a certified trainer in a low stress situation. We can't do that here. So we are constantly going to be re-educating people into the fact that they're expecting us to do something that we can't do in shelter. We will always focus more on the coping mechanisms. That's why our field trip program is so vital. Our field trip program teaches dogs how to be in cars, how to be around kids, how to be around in public spaces. We don't teach basics, we teach coping. Most animals need a structured routine with some spontaneous activities. But most animals, before they came here, they didn't know if they were going to get fed regularly. They didn't know if they were going to have a safe place to sleep. Sleep deprivation is the #1 causer of bad behavior. We have to make sure that our animals here have that routine, have that security, so they actually will sleep. So our job is to make sure that these animals can get out of here effectively. Now, I will say, we have reached over 100 adoptions for this year already with 4 months to go. So we're all pretty proud of that fact. You guys all should, some of you are new, but you all are part of that process.
You mean 1,000?
1,000. What did I say?
100.
Oh, well, you know, it's 100 a month. So it's 1,000 already for the year. So, and finally, any questions? Yes.
We've been having a lot of smiley dogs recently, so I want to know your opinion on
The submissive smiles. Oh, I love that. Yes. So if you were just to walk up to a dog and it shows you all of its teeth, what do y'all think that is? Is that bad or good? You don't have to think too hard, just first answer. You think it's aggression?
I think it could be either or.
It could be either or. So there is a thing called submissive smiling. It is very much misunderstood in dogs. Cats don't do it as much, but there are some cats that are. So kind of a background into that. Humans are one of the only animals that regularly smile when we're happy. Most species of animals, including all of the primates, they show their teeth when they're nervous or they're challenging. Some dogs have picked up smiling as a way of calming. Some dogs will smile at you and show all of their teeth. If anyone wonders what this looks like, go to my office. My dog will do it. We also have Smee, who is our big submissive. He's got a bigger one than Billy. It is non-aggressive. So kind of the old school, prior to 20 years ago, the old school thought is if a dog shows its teeth, it's being aggressive. If it wags its tail, it's happy. Both of those are completely misleading characteristics. Tail wagging simply means I'm okay with the situation. So, good question. Any others? Yes?
What is all of the stuff up there?
Oh, that's for our gala. It's for the silent auction. Tomato, tomato. All right, any others? Awesome. Well, that's all she wrote then.